Yeah, hi everyone. First of all, thank you for having me, DEF CON Blue Team Village team, and thank you for joining my presentations. And most of the security researcher would like to share their great finding and excellent achievement through the security conference. But in this talk, I would like to share my failure in the threat intelligence industry. So the title is Attribution and Bias: My Terrible Mistakes in Threat Intelligence Attributions. Then let's start. Yeah, before moving on, allow me to introduce myself briefly. My name is Seongsu from South Korea, and I'm working in Kaspersky, great global research and analysis team as a lead security researcher. And I'm the only one who can speak the Korean in our team, so I'm usually tracking the Korean-speaking threat actors such as the Lazarus and Blue Note of Kimsky, Dark Hotel, and Skycraft. And yeah, I believe the attendees of this conference already knew about what is the threat intelligence and attributions, but for the people who are not familiar with them, let me introduce them briefly. The threat intelligence, or the cyber threat intelligence, is a kind of information gathered from various sources and about current or the potential cyber attack against organizations or individuals. And I think the key point of threat intelligence is evidence-based and actionable advice. A threat intelligence researcher like me produce the actionable items to respond to the cyber attack with much information. And simply, the attribution is the process to reveal the who is behind the cyber attack. So it could be specific groups or individuals or countries as well. Then let's start to talk about my terrible failure experience in threat intelligence industry. The first case was caused by my perception of bias. And maybe you already know about the Olympic destroyer target the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. And it happened on February 8, 2018, 8 p.m. the local time, the exact same time the Winter Olympic opening ceremony began. And this sabotage attack accompanied wiper malware, so it made a lot of damage to the Olympic Committee. And according to the Olympic Committee, more than 300 servers were affected, and many critical services were suspended, including the Wi-Fi and email, transport, and accommodations because of this Olympic destroyer attack. Olympic destroyer is wormable malware that spread itself with destruction capability. It consists of 4 components: the window credential stealer, browser credential stealer, PSEX tool for lateral movement, and the wiper malware for system destruction. And you can see that the other components are based on the public source code, such as Mimikatz. The only malware that can be used for the finding code similarity with other malware was the wiper malware. So a lot of vendors start to dig into this wiper malware. And in the early stage of Olympic destroyer research, many vendors was confused who is behind this attack. And one vendor said it is related to the NotPetya or dark web incident, and the other vendor urged that it was Lazarus, and another vendor said the Chinese-speaking actor was behind this attack. And I also start to look into this malware. And at the beginning of this research, I had some bias. And historically, Lazarus or Blue Note group conducted a sabotage attack with the wiper malware. So I think this case could be associated with these groups as well, Blue Note or Blue Lazarus. And with this biased perception, I start to find the evidence to fit into my wrong conclusion. And first of all, the file name of Olympic destroyer used has some similarity with the Blue Note group used before. You can see the Olympic destroyer used the evtchk.txt file, and previously the Blue Note group used a very similar file name before. And also the wiper used by the Blue Note group has some this kind of code similarity with the Olympic destroyer, but it's a common code for file wiping securely, so I cannot judge only using these code similarities. And the additional things that consolidate my bias was rich headers, very famous research from my colleague. And the rich header is an undocumented header in the P file. It contains a minor version of a compiler, the unique identifier of the type of object, and how many times it is used by the linker. And so therefore, if the developer used a different number of source code and the development environment, the rich header could had different values. So, yep. So we extract the rich header from the wiper malware and made a Yara rule to run to our repository. And we are the antivirus company, which means we have hundreds of millions of malware in our repository. But using this Yara rules, only 4 Blue Note malware was detected. And it means the Olympic destroyer malware and Blue Note malware were developed in the same environment or the same developer. So I almost conclude the Blue Note group was behind the Pyeongchang Olympic cyber attack. However, my colleagues start to look into the rich header, and according to the rich header information from the wiper malware, it was developed by Microsoft Visual Studio 6. And after carefully checking the malware, we figure out it's not matched with the information from the source code, internal source code. And first, the Olympic destroyer contains the mscori.dll module, which is the Microsoft.NET runtime execution engine. And this module was introduced after Visual Studio 6, which means the Visual Studio 6 never adds this module automatically. The other conclusive evidence was the tmain CRT startup entry functions, and that is only produced with the runtime library MSVC10 using the default optimization options. And only on top of that, the whole Olympic destroyer wiper was compiled on December 27, 2017. It's almost 1.5 months earlier from the Olympic opening ceremony. But there is one sample that is compiled on February 9th, 2018, on the same date of Olympic ceremony. Maybe the malware order produced this sample urgently for some reason, and it contains the original rich headers. As you can see, the rich header of these samples contains Visual Studio 2010 information. So in conclusion, the rich header from the wiper is a fake. Maybe it is for the false flag. And to sum up, the malware order behind the Olympic destroyer copy the rich header from the Blue Note malware and paste it to their wiper to make a very sophisticated first flag. And this is a very stunning first flag operation from the actors. And at this point, I realized that my initial hypothesis was wrong. I believe the Blue Note group is behind this attack. But at this point, we cannot figure out who is behind this attack. And beside the rich header story, we found additional victim from the South Korea, and they are the ski resorts and compromised by the same Olympic destroyer malware at the same time. So I contact them and decide to visit them to help. So I quickly packed and went there using my car, and we started investigations. And there was so much evidence still remaining at the ski resort, and I collected whole files and a disk image of patients, zero host, and logs from many hosts. And as a result of these on-site investigations, I can find how this threat actor infiltrate and move laterally to the high privilege host and run the Olympic destroyer malware. So yeah, through this investigation, we can acquire a lot of evidence for initial infection. The actor compromised the third-party software. They are managed the internal software for ski resort to control the ski gate opening. And the actor sneaked into the server almost 1 week before the Olympic opening ceremony. And the threat actor heavily rely on the PowerShell tools such as PowerShell Empire and the PowerSploit. And the actor used a common method for lateral movement using the PSEXAC and Meterpreter. And also we discovered a lot of additional C2 addresses, even the TeamViewer server address the actor used. And based on this finding, we can conclude that the tools and techniques and procedures of the actors behind the Olympic destroyer was totally different from the Blue Note group. So we named them the different APT actors, Hades. And yeah, in this research, I failed the early stage because of an impatient conclusion with the insufficient evidence at the early stage. And I also had strong bias that the sabotage attack against South Korea could be related to the North Korean threat actors. That is the reason I made a wrong conclusion at the beginning. And yeah, the next failure cases happened because of my over-reliance. This story is about the conflict between two threat actors, Skycraft and the Dark Hotel. And Skycraft was published by the Kaspersky in 2016. They primarily targeting the entities in South Korea. And Dark Hotel also published by the Kaspersky in 2014. They compromising the hotel network and attacking high-profile individuals. And even though they use the different techniques, they have a lot of overlaps. They are Korean-speaking actors. They have similar victimologies, and sometimes using the similar techniques. I've seen some malware code overlap before, and definitely one group wants to hide the other group's shadow. And by other colleague, the confliction between these two groups was introduced previously. There were also two different operations. Operation Erebus was done by the Skycraft with the watering hole attack, and Operation Daybreak was related to the Dark Hotel with the spearfishing attack. And at first, the Kaspersky also confused both operations and conclude the Skycraft was behind those operations, Operation Erebus and Operation Daybreak. The reason makes this conclusion was both operations used the same C2 servers, but after looking into it, we figured out that possibly one group compromised the other group's C2 server, and each operation has a very different TTPs. So we conclude that Operation Erebus was the Skycraft group's operation, and Operation Daybreak was a Dark Hotel. Now, I've seen the two groups were conflict in another case. We observed one Russian victim. He's possibly the businessman or diplomat. And this victim was compromised by Dark Hotel malware in March 2018. And the Skycraft group also manipulated this host in September 2018. And also the Kony threat actor compromised this host as well. And as we can see, the Dark Hotel and Skycraft has a very similar target list and discover from the same host from time to time. Okay, then let's see my mistake. One day, Chinese security vendor published some known APT actor used the Internet Explorer zero-day exploit used with the Word documents. And unfortunately, there is no detailed indicators published, so I have to find the samples by myself. But luckily, I found the word sample from the virus total somehow. And as soon as I found the sample, I tried to find the additional document samples using the virus total similar to functionalities. I never want to blame the capability of virus total. It's my daily hunting platform and I can't imagine the working without it. But at this time, I was overly trusting its result, virus total similar to function result. Maybe the similar to features find the similar samples based on the metadata, such as the language characteristics and structure of the files, but I ignore the possibility that this result could include non-precise result. So I started to fall into wrong rabbit hole. First, I list up the whole document from the virus total and several C2 servers connected by the malicious document already published by other vendors. And they said it is related to the Skycraft group's activity. Also, a lot of decoy document contains North Korean expressions. The South Korean and the North Korean language expression are totally different. And in this case, the actor used the North Korean expressions. It makes me become more confident that the Skycraft actor behind this campaign. But when I cross-checked this research with my colleague, we figured out that the malware used in this campaign has connection to the Operation Daybreak. And at the early stage, I confused the Operation Daybreak was belonged to Skycraft, but it was a dark hotel. And finally, I conclude this Operation Soundcheck was conducted by the dark hotel group. And there was a similar experience. One day, I found a bunch of similar samples that contains New Year greeting message in Korean and North Korean pictures and pictures or documents about North Korean diplomat. And during this research, I discovered some evidence that Dark Hotel was behind this campaign. First, the victim was overlapped with the previous Dark Hotel operations, kind of diplomat related to the North Korea. And the malware contains a strange user agent string. You can see the KP. KP is the North Korean country code. Also, the working time zone based on the malware compilation time and the command execution time was GMT +8 or 9 zone. And additionally, the several decoys used North Korean font named Cholima font. And the reason influenced my decision a lot was the other vendors that the same decoy document was employed by the Dark Hotel group before. But there was no strong evidence why it is connected to the Dark Hotel. And that was my fault, believe others' research without my own verifications. And regarding this campaign, many vendors published their own technical descriptions. Oops, sorry. And attributions. And one vendor said the Polish government got spear phishing disguised as a Chinese government. And another vendor said it's related to the Korean Peninsula. And the other said it's not related to the Dark Hotel group. It's a subgroup of the Dark Hotel. And so many different and unsolid publishments were out about this attack. And in conclusion, my attribution was too hasty at the early stage, and we are tracking this group as a different group named Coughing Down. Yeah, I made a mistake in this case because I was deceived by the sophisticated false flag. One group want to hide the other's shadow, so they try to use very sophisticated false flag. And language skills are very important for threat intelligence researcher, but as you can see, sometimes it makes me more confusing. So because there is two kind of Korean, North Korean expression and South Korean expression. So we should be careful when we check the language characteristics. Also, I was over-reliant on the result of virus total and over-trusted the others' report without my own verifications. And that's the reason why I was fooled in this research. And let's see the last but not least case. I think some of you guys heard about the Operation Apple Juice, and it is campaign of a largest group attacking the cryptocurrency industry with a fake company, as well as the first case of using the macOS malware by the largest group. And one day we discovered the infection from one cryptocurrency exchange. They were compromised by known largest malware. And as a result of backtracking the infection procedures, we figured out that the compromised cryptocurrency application was downloaded from the company's website. The website name is sellasllc.com. And the update module from the cryptocurrency application connected to this company's server. So I thought this is the normal update process. Usually many applications do the update check when it just started. So at the initial stage of this research, I thought the Sellas company's supply chain was compromised and delivered the malicious application to their customer. So I very kindly informed them by email, your server is suspicious. So I introduced myself very kindly. Hello, this is Seongsu from Kaspersky Lab, and share the whole status, all my research status with them. But there was no reply from them. Even their website went offline the next day after sending my email, and they enhanced their operational security. When I first checked the Sellas website, anyone can download their compromised applications. But after my email, they added an email verification process. If someone wants to get their installation package, they need to put an email address, and only verified client can receive the program. It means that I help them to enhance their operational security, and this is a quite embarrassing experience for me. And when I carefully look into their infrastructure, there were many points I should have suspected. The address from the SSL certification is fake, and it's a strange place when I checked from the Google map. And if I checked their infrastructure carefully, maybe I didn't send the email to them. And in this case, the Operation Apple Juice case, I was mocked by abundant preparation from the Lazarus group. They configured the fake website with the SSL certificate and develop a fake cryptocurrency trading application to deceive the victim. Actually, they manage the fake company. Also, they operate a kind of support center in another email conversation, not an initial email, another email conversation to get an additional application. They replied to my email with a very nice English. And despite we made an interesting research result on Operation Apple Juice, I made a hasty decision at the beginning so that I notified the actor we recognized their campaigns. Yep, those are the failure cases I would like to share. The attribution is matter, but it's very hard because we need to still rely on the many points for manual jobs. And as a human beings, we have lots of stereotypes and biases. So we can easily compromise by the first flag and the other things that can affect our decisions. So we should very carefully bring the conclusions and judge something after collecting evidence as much as we can. But I know it's a very challenging process, but we need to do our best for this. And sometimes as a threat intelligence analyst, we need a kind of responsibility when we publish something, especially the attributions, because it can bring a lot of chaos to our industry. And the last thing I want to share is a quotation from the Professor Richard Feynman. He said, "You learn nothing from life if you think you are right all the time." So yeah, we should admit we can be wrong, and sometimes we need to learn from our failure, I think. Yep, that's it. I hope my presentation is useful to someone. So if you have any questions, please leave a questions the Bulletin Village Discord channel. I will get around at that channel, Discord channel, or send your question to my Twitter or email, and I will reply soon. And thank you for your attentions.